Hello everybody and welcome back to Crack Build Play. This week we have a review of a recent event that I played in a little bit before Halloween. It was Magic's Duskmourn House of Horrors Trick-or-Treat event. This was an event that Magic put out to, or Wizards of the Coast put out to a number of different local game stores, and it was a treat bag. Here's the packaging. Treat bag full of essentially what was a pre-release kit, but with some special types of packs thrown in, and also a special trick-or-treat mechanic. So it was a regular sealed format, and played just like sealed. You have 6 packs to build, 6 packs to make up your sealed pool, 6 packs to build from. But in addition to that, there was this trick-or-treat mechanic that said whenever an enchantment you control enters, choose one. You choose either trick, which is create a treasure token, or treat, which is create a food token. So it adds a little bit of variation to a typical sealed event format. Really leaning towards that enchantment synergy that the Duskmourn set has with rooms and eerie and those types of mechanics. So it was really, even just starting out, looking for enchantment synergies was something that we're definitely looking for. So what I want to do today is sort of break down what was in the overall pack contents, what packs made up the sealed pool, talk a little bit about the decks that I put together, and just sort of give a little bit of rundown of the event itself and how I did. So let's start with the pack makeup. So there were 4 booster or play boosters from Duskmourn, and then 2 mystery booster 2 packs. So in total, you have the 4 Duskmourn boosters and the 2 mystery boosters to make up your sealed pool. I will say the mystery boosters definitely added a little bit of chaos, as we'll see when we talk through and do the game breakdowns here in a minute. But they definitely added some chaos. There was definitely some interesting cards that were played during the different rounds. My sealed pool specifically did not have a lot of bombs. From a play booster or mystery booster perspective, there were some folks that opened some really interesting, really cool cards. Mine was less impactful on my overall decks, but there were a couple of cards that really I leaned into a little bit, sort of just trying to have fun with the specific format and the fact that it was a little bit chaotic, a little bit random. I ended up actually building 2 decks. I've talked about this before in the video. It's something that I like to do at pre-release events, or definitely look to do if possible with your sealed pool, because in a lot of cases, especially with recent Magic sets, the archetypes are so split across the different color pairings that you can open in your packs. Sometimes you can see a pretty distinct divide between, okay, these sets of cards are for this deck, this sets of cards are for this deck. And if you have enough of each of those, you can sort of put 2 decks together. In this case, I was leaning really heavily into the randomness of or the chaos of this, and put together 2 decks that were around a specific handful of cards. Overall, my card pool wasn't that great. Like I said, I think the best card in the pool was Enduring Innocence, which is a great card, but isn't necessarily like the bombs you can get from Duskmourn, like the Overlord of the Mistmoors or Valgavoth's Onslaught, or any of those. It wasn't, and even in my mystery boosters, I didn't open anything, like I said, super impactful. Even the playtest cards were kind of mediocre compared to some of the others that I've seen for sure get opened. But it did end up with 2 pretty interesting decks, and overall it did pretty well at the event. So let's jump in and take a look at the decks here. I made 2 decks in different color pairings. They were both 3 color. The first was a Naya deck that really, I think it started out looking at maybe red-white. It's pretty like low to the ground, 2 power less matters sort of deck. But when I opened this Wild Nacatl from my mystery booster, realized that I could probably extend a little bit into into green and really get to take advantage of just how good that card can be in a limited environment. So that between that, Enduring Innocence, the Irreverent Gremlin, excuse me, the Lionheart Glimmer, those were really what sort of were the core of what drove me to actually build this deck and play this deck. The Wild Acatl, just again a one mana creature that can be a 3/3 if you control a mountain or a plains, can come down on turn one, gets a little bit bigger as you go on. Enduring Innocence, being able to draw cards, and the fact that it's has lifelink and has 2 power. The Irreverent Gremlin, when the fact that it is a 2/2 for 2 with Menace, so it leans into that 2 power or less synergy. And it also has, whenever another creature you control with power 2 or less enters, you may discard a card if you do draw a card. So really a lot of good card draw to get from maybe some of the early game threats into the late game closers, which in this case that was Lionheart Glimmer. Lionheart Glimmer is 3 and 2 white for a 2/5 with Ward 2. It's a cat glimmer. It's an enchantment creature. Whenever you attack, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. So the goal of this deck was to put as many cheap creatures out as possible, throw down a Lionheart Glimmer, and attack with everything to try to overwhelm the opponent. So Splitskin Doll fits that as well. And again, you can draw a card, and you don't have to discard if you have another creature with power 2 or less, which almost every creature in this deck has power 2 or less. Knight of Cliffhaven, that was one that opened up in one of my mystery booster packs. It's 2/2 for 2, but you can also level it up to give it flying and then eventually flying and vigilance. I don't think I ever got that far, but just having a 2-power creature with some evasion with all the other synergy was good. Enlightened Aesthetic, this is also the mystery booster. This was a great one because it ended up being enchantment removal on a body with power 2 or less. Fear of Surveillance, Possessed Goat. I love playing Possessed Goat in this format. Just in the early stages, it triggers all of, when it comes down as a 1/1, it triggers all of the things I need it to trigger from a power 2 or less matters, but it can eventually get to be a 4/4 in the late game if you need it to be. Grand Entryway or Elegant Rotunda, this creates a 1/1. Forge Devil, it is a 1/1 that deals 1 damage to a creature. It can come down after combat and help finish something off if you need it to. Lazier Goblin, this is one of the playtest cards. When it enters, it deals 2 damage to any target. You have to pay 3 and a red for it to be able to attack or block again. This mostly came down, worked as removal. 2 power or less helped just clear the board if there was something that you needed to remove. Lone Missionary, gain 4 life. Again, these are all just things that were really 2 power or less matters. Vicious Clown, Living Phone. These 2 Living Phones, being able to look at the top 5 cards in my library, reveal that card, you could sacrifice it, or block with them, and get something else out. Again, just a lot of cheap 2 power or less creatures. Insidious Fungus worked as removal for enchantments, key enchantments, especially leaning into the sort of trick or treat mechanic. People were playing a lot of enchantments, so it was good to have that removal on a body. And then Flame Tongue Kavu, again, one I opened in Mystery Boosters. This is just a house, and when it comes down, so 4/2 and being able to deal 4 damage, clear a body out of the way. We'll talk about this in the games we when we go over that in a second, but really helped power through and win a couple of games for sure. Then we get into sort of the regular removal. We've got Sunlance, again, deals 3 damage to a target non-white creature, which is helpful when a lot of the creatures that you're looking at are either green, black, or blue in a lot of cases, so that ended up being good. And then, again, with so many enchantments, being able to destroy a target enchantment here. And then this deck doesn't have a lot of flyers, so the Crushing Canopy from a mystery booster is helpful. Then just basic lands. Overall, I think this deck was just fast enough for this format. Again, it didn't get to take advantage of things like Arabella or some of the other 2 power matters cards, but when we get into the rounds here in a minute, it overperformed, I think, for how maybe lacking on the top end it was. It was definitely the deck that I felt most comfortable playing. The second deck I made ended up being Grixis, and it ended up being Grixis for a couple of specific reasons. And it's really built around, again, trying to take advantage. When I realized I had a bunch of enchantments left over, trying to take advantage of the sort of extra mechanic that's part of this Trick or Treat event or House of Horrors event. And then the interaction between two very specific cards that I opened in this pool. Those two cards were Nin the Pain Artist and Screaming Nemesis. So let's take a look at both of these two really quick. Nin the Pain Artist it's a legendary creature. It's a 2-mana 1/1 for that has an ability where you can pay X, blue and a red, tap it, and it deals X damage to target creature. That creature's controller draws X cards. And you're thinking, okay, well, in most cases, you could use that as removal, but you're going to sacrifice them drawing cards. A lot of cases, like in Commander, when folks play this, they're dealing high amounts of damage to their big creatures or to your own creatures to draw, so that you can draw that many cards. But I also opened in my pool a Screaming Nemesis. And Screaming Nemesis, for those that don't know, is 2 and a red for a 3/3 spirit. It has haste, and it says whenever Screaming Nemesis is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any other target. If a player is dealt damage this way, they can't gain life for the rest of the game. What this means is that I can deal 2 damage to my Screaming Nemesis using Nim the Pain Artist, paying 4 mana essentially, 2 and then a red and a blue, and tapping Nim. Deal 2 damage to Screaming Nemesis. And then I get to draw 2 cards from Nin. Screaming Nemesis then takes that 2 damage and either deals that 2 damage to the opponent or deals 2 damage to an opponent's creature. It can be any target. That interaction and the fact that I could sort of negate a lot of the damage that I was doing, or even redirect that damage to do some more damage to my opponent's creatures, was pretty much the reason why I ended up wanting to build this deck in the first place. The second reason why was because I opened a Crumbling Necropolis in my one of my mystery boosters, and I also had Peculiar Lighthouse and Murky Sewer as 2 other sort of mana fixing lands. So that allowed me to go from a blue-red deck that maybe had some enchantments to really like leaning into black, so I could play the removal that's there. So as far as removal is concerned, I had Withering Torment, 2 murders, actually 2 different murders, one from my mystery booster and M20 murder, and then one from this Duskmourn set. Also had Glassworks, deals 4 damage to target creature and opponent controls, is an enchantment, so fits with the Trick or Treat theme, and sort of the enchantment main theme. This was this Screaming Nemesis, Nin the Pain Artist was sort of like the sub theme of the deck. That was the ultimate goal, but the main theme was around enchantments and leaning into Eerie and the room synergy here. So also had Unable to Scream as an enchantment that is removal. Nowhere to Run is 2 mana, great removal, gets a creature -3/-3. And then if there's something that for some reason has ward, like that Glimmerlight, if they had one, you would be able to still be able to target that without things getting countered. Glimmerlight, again, makes an enchantment creature, the Skullsap Nuisance. Then we sort of get into the things that either make enchantments or have enchantment synergy. Skullsap Nuisance to surveil, Glimmerburst to create an enchantment creature and draw cards. Fear of Imposters is an enchantment creature. Tunnel Surveyor makes an enchantment creature. Clammy Prowler is an enchantment creature. Fear of Being Hunted. All of these sort of lean into the enchantment synergies. I also opened a Propaganda in my mystery booster pool, so that was really helpful in trying to prevent myself from dying early on, to try to get that Nin the Pain Artist sort of combo going. And then ultimately threw in sort of some things here at the back just to give some I could get some extra advantage maybe. And the Sawblade Skin Ripper is just a good card in red and black, having Menace and is a 3/2. Diversion Specialist, being able to sacrifice some of the rooms that aren't useful and to draw a card, essentially draw a card, and then Grab the Prize is just a good card draw spell, and then the rest of the basic lands. So these decks had 2 very different goals. This deck was really about how do I keep myself alive, control the board a little bit, play enchantments, take advantage of the the extra mechanic until I can maybe get this goofy combo going and start picking off the creatures and start trying to win. And then this Naya deck really low to the ground, get out as many creatures as possible, try to finish with this Lionheart Glimmer, and yeah. So that was really overall the two deck lists. I got to play both during the rounds. We'll get to the round breakdown in just a second, but let's look a little bit, just for a minute, at some of the cards that didn't make it in the pool. Like I said, overall the pool wasn't super great. I started out really thinking maybe I had something in the manifest space. I had a Growing Dread and a Ethereal Ambush, so the different types of manifest. I thought that might be interesting. Then I thought maybe there's some sort of Reanimator option I opened a Living Death as one of the rares in my Mystery Booster pool. Also opened a Reassembling Skeleton and Innocuous Rats. This, I thought about putting this Imaginary Friends as a playtest card in my deck, again, because of the power 2 or less synergy. This creates 3/0/0 White Spirit creature tokens, but really those only would live if... actually, they wouldn't live at all. And I didn't have anything to give them +1/+1 counters or to give sort of my board +1/+1 except when I'm attacking. So that ultimately didn't make it in the deck. And then these were other things, that potential removal, other 2-mana creatures that almost made it in this Naya deck, but overall just didn't make the cut. All right, so let's move on to the round breakdowns. This was a 3-round event. It was mainly just a casual event on the weekend, and across those 3 rounds, I was able to play each deck. Started out with this Naya deck. My first round, I played an opponent who had a Gruul deck. Was really sort of driven by the Gruul Stompy, trying to get some of the Delirium cards out on play, get stuff in the graveyard. On game 1, I was stuck without white mana, so I was able to get some of my some green creatures out, but really got stuck on white mana and wasn't able to play any of my white cards, which again, looking through the deck list, a lot of the key cards in this deck are white. So I got stuck on white mana. Eventually got run over pretty quickly by the deck. They had a Valgavoth's Onslaught in there, played that in mid turns, and ended up just completely overrunning me with value. So game 1 was a little bit of a wash. Game 2, I had a nearly perfect start. Was able to get down. I had the Wild Nacatl in play. Was able to get down a number of different 2 power or less creatures, and then as we were sort of nearing the end of the game, had a board with the Glimmer, and I think it was the Glimmer and the Fear Surveillance, and I think the Possessed Goat at that time was a 4/4, and they had a blocker that was a 4 toughness blocker, and right on time, Flame Tongue Kavu came down, dealt 4 damage to it, cleared their blocker, and I was able to run over the rest of get through with the rest of the damage from the rest of my creatures. Game 3, Knight of Clifthaven, again, was the real MVP. In a deck where I don't have a lot of flyers, I was able to keep sort of chipping away in the air by leveling it up pretty early on, and then eventually was able to just get that chip damage in early, and then with the Lionheart Glimmer and a board full of creatures, sort of overrun them late in the game. For round 2, so I ended up winning 1 round run, 2 games to 1. For round 2, the opponent's deck that I was playing against was a white-blue enchantments deck that they did a great job of leaning into the additional mechanic here, the trick-or-treat mechanic. They also had Shield of the Oversoul. Their two key cards that ended up being huge in the round were Shield of the Oversoul and 3 mana Teferi. That really made things difficult throughout the game for sure. Again, I switched over to this Nin the Pain Artist and Screaming Nemesis sort of concoction. Again, I think overall, I think this deck is a little bit weaker, but it really sort of showed in this game, this round. In game one, I was able to I was able to get the Screaming Nemesis in play. Did not get the Pain Artist in play, um, and was able to 2-for-1 a number of different creatures. So I was able to uh, go down, have Screaming Nemesis block. I think it blocked like a 3/3 creature, and then was able to do that 3 damage to another creature. So get that 2-for-1. That value between that and being able to get the advantage from the trick-or-treat mechanic by being able to play a lot more of the enchantments. This definitely does it a lot more than the deck one that Naya deck does. Between that, I was able to pick off and stay in the game and make enough treasures and keep myself alive with some food tokens to very, very closely eke that one out. But they did not get to play any of their powerful cards in game one. It wasn't until game two that sort of really realized what was going to be most likely the case for this round. Game two was completely outclassed. They had a Shield of the Oversoul on an Optimistic Scavenger and just went to town. There was really not a whole lot I could do once that Shield of the Oversoul was on there. I unfortunately didn't draw any of my cards. I think there may be one card in this deck that was able to deal with that enchantment. Didn't get a lot of the great removal spells. And between that and the 3-mana Teferi coming down and bouncing my Diversion Specialist, which I had as my only blocker, or my key blocker late in the game, they were able to sort of just swing in and deal damage. That game went relatively quickly. Game three was similar to game two. They ended up getting the Shield of the Oversoul on Fear of Isolation. Didn't have a whole lot to say for their flyer. I did, however, get to pull off the Nim or the Nin, the Pain Artist, and the Screaming Nemesis combo that I wanted. So I did finally get them both in play. I think White was able to deal Screaming Nemesis damage one time, drew 2 cards, picked off one of their creatures, their smaller creatures, but ultimately their deck just having that Shield of Oversoul give creature flying was difficult for this deck to handle. So at this point, I am 1-1. I've been able to play both decks. Had a lot of fun. They're definitely realizing that this Naya deck is the deck that is a little bit stronger. So I ended up going with that in round 3. I played an opponent who had a blue, black, green manifest deck. In game 1, I had the Wild Nikotl in my opening hand and Naya mana. So I had pretty much the dream. Was able to get Wild Nikotl down on turn 1, attack on turn 2 with a 2/2, and then turn 3 attack with a 3/3. Eventually, by sacrificing a living phone, I was able to get Enduring Innocence and helped that. I made a food token, helped keep myself alive for a little bit. Ended up just being able to, with the Enduring Innocence and sort of playing a 2 power or less creature every turn, being able to draw cards and continue to play more and more. I had too much value, too many 2/2s out there eventually, and was able to just keep attacking and won. Their deck was a little bit slow to get going. It took, I think they got unlucky in game 1 where a lot of their 2/2s, a lot of their manifested creatures ended up being lands, so there wasn't really anything to flip over. But game 2, and that actually a lot kind of carried over into game 2, actually. Opponent got stuck on blue and black mana. They really needed their green mana to keep their manifesting going, and I was, again, just able to play enough creatures. They were able to maybe manifest a couple, and I think I eventually just swung in with everything, and they either had to block and remove them, or they were going to die, and a couple of turns of that, and being able to play a new 2/2, or a new 2 mana or powerless creature every turn, pretty much was able to pick them off. So ultimately, I felt pretty good about both decks. This first deck, this Naya deck, ended up definitely being faster. And I think really the chaos nature of the having the two mystery boosters really meant that being fast and consistent was a huge plus, because there was so the mystery boosters kind of threw a little bit of a monkey wrench into some of the great synergy that the Duskmourn play boosters, or the Duskmourn boosters have, or this Duskmourn set in general has. So being able to get in underneath some of these decks that may take a little bit longer to set up because of the nature of them not being quite as synergistic meant that I could get a lot of damage in early and then just get enough creatures on the board that if they didn't have something to remove a good chunk of them, I was able to just continue to overrun them. Deck 2 definitely played into the trick-or-treat mechanic more, like I've said. It was definitely a lot of fun to play, but this Naya deck was definitely the strongest. Overall, I think the format was really fun. If hopefully folks got a chance to play it at your local game store. I think mine still actually has a couple of the trick-or-treat bags left. I was just in there over this past weekend. It was fun. I think the mystery boosters add a fun wrinkle. I think I'm really what it does is really make me interested and excited to do a full like sealed event with just mystery boosters. I think that would be a lot of fun. I know people are really drafting those mystery booster 2-packs pretty heavily right now, but I think sealed with that amount of chaos is always fun. The format's probably pretty bomby, but it and probably has a lot of different like a lack of synergy, but I think that can be fun sometimes too, for sure. If you're interested, as always, I have the full sealed pool in the description. I also have the deck list for each of the 2 decks that I ended up making. Go ahead and take a look and evaluate them, see what different choices you might have made with the pool. If you're interested in more Duskmourn content, go ahead and check out the last 2 videos where we built a couple of decks from different sealed pools. Coming up, we're going to be breaking down the Duskmourn meta, looking at the top performing cards in Sealed, checking out some of the best color pairings, and how just overall how the meta sort of unfolded now that we're moving from Duskmourn into Foundations. I'll also be breaking down my top 10 favorite cards from Duskmourn for Sealed. In addition to that, we're going to be having a Foundations pre-release event review. I was able to take part in the recent pre-release event at my local game store, do a similar breakdown like we did in the video today, but of that event. Foundations was really, really fun. I'm excited to do some more Foundations related content and get into doing some more limited gameplay with Foundations for sure. And then sometime in the near future, we'll have go back to Bloomburrow and do another sealed deck build. Want to sort of take a step back and look into a format that I enjoyed, but was quite a bit different from what I've seen so far from Foundations and what we just experienced throughout the Duskmourn meta. With that, we'll end today's episode. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and catch us again on Crack Build Play.